there is reporting from ProPublica that Musk's department has secured for itself not $1 million or $5 million, but a $40 million budget. And this comes after the reporting that they'd saved billions, but not the 50-plus billion that they'd falsely claimed. Republicans are not all okay with this. There are senior officials working with Trump who feel both irritated and blindsided by how much Musk is running the show. Politico reports other Republicans are lobbying the White House, getting a hold of them however they can, calls and texts, saying that the cuts, which, again, many Republicans are more generally sympathetic to when done responsibly, right? There are many Republicans who voted for smaller federal budgets going forward. But these kind of indiscriminate cuts this fast, without any oversight, could affect public safety and health. Now, what is the ultimate goal here? Is this just about, quote, smaller government? Which, again, if you're honest, sometimes in this era, everything is so intense that people think or say or claim that whatever Trump and Musk and some of these folks are doing is the worst ever or unprecedented or brand new. And some of it is. We definitely never saw these kind of pardons for convicts who attacked police before. But some of it is not. In other words, there are many people who want a smaller role for the federal government in certain areas. But here's the thing. Most of those Republicans historically wanted to do that through the lawful budgeting process. So you hire these people and you decide not to hire those people. You figure out the proper role and you responsibly move forward. What we are seeing here is unprecedented in the nature of it, the indiscriminate sort of slashing. That's why they've had to fire and then rehire people, which is an admission of failure, and a kind of a rush to do this right now in these weeks, which has raised other larger questions. And there is reporting on this as well. The Washington Post, talking to a lot of folks close to this process, and concluding that what the ultimate goal would be is a diminished government which exerts less oversight over private business, delivers fewer services, but is still more responsive to the directives of the president. Now, notice the key difference there. It's not just saying a smaller government for the long term because somebody thinks that the Pentagon has gotten too large or most education money should really be dealt with at the local, not federal level. What this is reporting, and we've seen other indications about it, is that the things the federal government does that are independent or check the power of a president, all of those agencies that are supposed to have scientific expertise and not just have their view on, say, the monthly jobs report or the temperature of the earth, that stuff isn't supposed to change every 4 years when different presidents come in. But the view here is something we've seen Donald Trump pursue in many other ways, that anything independent, even if it's for your public benefit or even if it fights waste, fraud, and abuse, as the inspectors general did until they were fired by him, anything like that will first be screened for the business benefits to people like him and Musk and other billionaires and the power of the presidency. That is not just, quote, smaller government. That is a very different vision. And quite frankly, it's not one they campaigned that much on. Geraldo, let me show you one quick poll. We know that Trump improved his showing in the 2024 election. He got up to about 49.50 total percent. But when you look at the question about this use of authority in the first month, he's already lost 1 out of 5 folks there. 40% of people say, OK, he's acted within his authority. That's less than his voters, roughly. And a larger majority, by a 17-point margin, is already concerned he's exceeded his authority. And we're in the early days of this term. Your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is to congratulate Libby and the Washington Post, because I think they nailed it, that Musk's secret ambition is to replace the human workforce totally with robots and to somehow control technologically speaking, that. I mean, obviously, it's an exaggeration, but when you have someone whose head is as Musk's is so far out there in Mars, yeah, everybody wants waste, fraud, and abuse. I think I may have coined that, or an early user of that phrase back in the early 1970s. Everybody wants to cut it out unless it's their job that's being cut out, and then the willy-nilly nature of the hammer falling has been very unsettling in that it appears to be erratic. It appears to be radical. It appears to be improvisational. And the people want government to work. They want the post office to deliver the mail. They want the Forest Service to put out the fires, et cetera, et cetera. And they are worried that now the people who are coming to wreak havoc on the old world and to get the grotesque bloating. Let me tell you one quick anecdote about government waste, fraud, and abuse. It was a colonel I kind of grew up with in Iraq and Afghanistan. He came back to a job in the Pentagon. I said, "How you doing?" At some point, "How you doing, Colonel?" He said, "Here in this building, we have meetings about the meetings we're going to have in the coming days." It's meetings about meetings. I mean, there's no doubt that cuts need to be made, but there has to be a reassurance that they're being done in a reasonable, rational, business-like way.
Yeah, and I'll jump in and say, and that they're being done for the people, not for some other external business corrupt reason. So hang with me, Geraldo. I've got another thing I want to play for you. My last question to Libby before we lose her is, when do these pressures, this reporting, when does it accrue to a level where you get some response from the administration? Because Musk, like Trump, is testing.
Well, the Post has a recent poll that shows not only is Trump a little bit underwater now, but Americans disapprove by a 2-to-1 margin of what Elon Musk is doing. And Democrats are really trying to use Elon Musk as like the poster boy of this moment. And so we'll see when the ripple effects, not just of the federal government cuts. Remember, 80% of federal workers don't live anywhere near Washington, D.C. It's not just the people losing their jobs, but when the services are no longer available, when the FAA loses, as we have reported, essential workers who help with safety, that will make more constituents speak up. And then we will see if Congress decides to use the action and power that it has.
Yeah, really interesting. From the Washington Post, Libby Casey, thank you. Geraldo, we often take advantage of your experience when we have you on to look back through the archives. Our producers went splunking through them, and on immigration found something pretty striking. This runs back 25 years. Take a look.
My dad, Cruz Rivera, left here in 1940, one of the first wave of Puerto Ricans heading up to New York City. Like millions of others from Puerto Rico, from the Dominican Republic, from Mexico, from Central and South America, my dad, his family, and friends were searching for the American dream. Some of them found that dream. Others, though, became trapped at the very bottom levels of American society.
Just some of the way you've lived this and reflected on it. You mentioned multiple countries there. I've been telling folks, and I do the facts whether people agree or not or are surprised or not. In the first month, the overall deportation rate is lower than the last administration. That might be counterintuitive to people, but they haven't gotten their sea legs yet or gotten going on the higher rates they want. You could see weekly, it's not even close. And yet the Trump folks are, however, trying to telegraph what they call a tougher, more aggressive, other people call it a cruel approach. They've done that with media. They've done that with raids. They're saying they have plans to use military sites for detaining undocumented immigrants. There are reports of people sent to the wrong country in return. So they're not yet deporting anywhere near the Biden levels, but they're telegraphing with this aggressiveness. Given your long track record here, your thoughts?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. I mean, it was President Obama who was the deporter in chief. I think per capita, he deported more migrants than undocumented migrants than any other president. I think that cruelty, however, Ari, and it may sound counterintuitive, but cruelty works better than compassion in migration, as witnessed by the last month, as you suggest. It is exactly Trump's cruelty that has deterred these waves of undocumented, these rivers of migrants from coming. It is exactly his rhetoric threatening next to violence and humiliation and imprisonment and exile and so forth and so on. If you dare come, you will regret it. That has worked far better than Joe Biden on day one saying, "Send me your huddled masses breathing, yearning to breathe free." We believe in the American dream. We want everyone to have.
Might be older than Biden. Well, let me press you on that. I'll let you finish then. Given you walk in those paths and what we've seen over the course of your life, Is there an outer limit to that? Do you think that there's a problem with that's the long-term message from the United States?
I think as long as you have the richest nation in the world living side by side with some of the poorest nations in the world, you will have the flow. You will have every dad wants to provide for his kid. Every mom wants to provide for her child. They want to work. They want dignity. They want respect. They want a little piece of their own. Everybody will be drawn to the Rio Grande forever, forever. As long as Trump is scolding and threatening and deporting on C-130s to wherever they're going, and they closed Guantanamo Bay, thank God, when they were going to use that for migrants. I said, oh, my God, I got sick to my stomach having been in Guantanamo Bay. It's but in any case, I think that immigration, you're not going to hear so much about right now because it is reduced to a trickle, as your graphic dramatically demonstrates. I think that the flood is over, that the easy money, now that's going to have to come back, the more Tom, or human, his name, the more he says these horrible things, the more people will stay away.